with the
2018 Architecture and Historic Review Board meeting. The first item on tonight's agenda is 143 Ashford Avenue.
Hi, I'm Margo Pinchot, I'm the owner at 143 Ashford, and last meeting, we had requested pictures of what the railing was going to look like for the deck and the back of the house, which I submitted, which they attached to the plans. It was an aluminum railing, and you wanted to know what it was going to look like exactly.
This was continued, this was the.
That's for the last one.
Oh.
Can you pass that in? Thanks.
This was continued from the other meeting.
Did you look at this at the last hearing? I was not here.
No, they weren't here, they didn't show.
No, I wasn't here either.
Oh, you weren't here either. So, but this was submitted at the last hearing.
Just that was the only,
Okay, so nobody else has this except for me? Oh, no, you.
I had another copy of that, but that was the
Um,
only.
I submitted 6 copies, yeah.
So, this is kind of news to me. This shows a, sorry guys, this shows a door up here. You're putting a deck on the second level?
Yeah, that's what the plans are.
Okay, I guess that wasn't, do
I took a copy of it.
Yeah.
This is,
let's take a look at everything. Did this change from the first time you were here?
No, nothing's changed. Those were the original plans that were submitted in December.
I didn't realize that this was the proposition. I thought it was a ground level deck, which seemed pretty straightforward, but we were missing some information like the railing. A deck on the second level is, in this context, is quite unusual and aggressive, I think, for your neighbors. You have to keep in mind, you're now going to be, most people's bedrooms are on the second floor, so you're now going to be having an outdoor space on the same level with your neighbor who's quite close with their bedroom windows. Let's see what, sorry, I don't, did you guys get all this information, the
No.
last packet?
I wasn't here, so.
You were here at the previous meeting that I was at also.
Yeah, we were all here the first time you came.
Same drawings.
Yeah, no,
my understanding was always that this was on a lower level. I never imagined that it was on the second floor when it's very slender. At the very minimum, a rear elevation will start helping us to understand.
I think that was submitted,
Is an elevation, right?
because it was requested by the building department meeting that we went to.
That's all we have. So it shows on floor plans and that's it.
No elevation,
No, it's just a boilerplate.
the
Detail.
details. Oh, that's, I remember now.
Yeah, because we went to the building department in December and they approved it.
So we still don't have an elevation.
No, we don't have any elevation.
Maybe they can generate an elevation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
What's happening down here? Okay, just.
Downstairs, there is nothing, it's just,
No, no.
Bare ground?
It's just a backyard, grass and a little concrete by the logo door.
Mike, can I see the
Is
photo?
there?
Yeah, sorry, I'll pass these down.
It's not a whole bunch of block that has a second story deck in the back wall. It's also a one-family home.
These are the schematics we're familiar with, and these are, is this a rendering?
No, it's a
just
photo
photographs.
of a rail.
of the railing, and that photo of the back of the house, which has a little sketch on it, which shows sliding door, which is what.
Doesn't show.
So this is the two-story. Oh,
This is compliant with all codes and zoning.
I mean, both houses on either side also end where my house ends. The deck is beyond all of the houses next to it. It's not like the deck will come out and,
So it's,
I won't be next to the house, it'll be next to their backyard.
No, I know the neighborhood really well, I live in the neighborhood.
What's
And
that?
actually, I think that's what I mean, the reason I'm worried about it is because I know the neighborhood well, and I know what that,
And
I know,
there's nothing behind my house except we have a massive garage, so you can't actually even see the back of the house from the street.
yeah, and I know further, towards Ardsley, I'm not sure what direction it is. East, I guess. There's a house or two that have some decks, but the landscape is a little different as you go further on Virginia, the land slopes away from Ashford more steeply, and so those decks that are up high are actually on the first level of the house, they're not from the second floor. This is pretty unusual, I mean, this is something that we might see on a landscape that's steeply sloped, but pretty unprecedented as far as I can tell.
Wow.
Question, do you?
No, I mean, what's wrong with the deck out of the first level? Because isn't that,
It's a two-family
It's a
house.
two-family.
Okay.
So the second-story apartment has no access to the backyard, which we'd like to fence in.
I see,
So
okay.
there's no access to get outside to the backyard, so every time we have to come, we have to walk through the backyard into Ashford Avenue to the front door of the house, which leads up to the second-story
Okay.
apartment. So it's two separate apartments, so.
Yeah, no, I
there's no way
see,
to
I
get
see.
into the front door or rear of the house. That's why, one of the reasons why.
I see, and I'm sorry, I missed I missed the second floor deck the first time, I thought it was a ground level deck, and normally this is something I wanna go and look at and think about a little bit, and when we're dealing with a deck that's on the ground level, we don't necessarily need an elevation, we wanna see what the railing looks like, but when you're putting something that's 15 feet up in the air, well, I think we need to see what the house is gonna look like with this new structure on the back. And I think I know it's on the back, and I know it's not highly visible from Virginia, but you still have a neighbor on either side that could be deeply impacted by this. And so, in fairness to them, I think we just would would need to see what that is gonna look like. And, you know, the plan tells us something, the photo tells us quite a bit, but I think, I mean, am I wrong, are you, how do you guys?
Well, I feel the same. I need, at the minimum, very minimum, we need an elevation showing the back and how is that affecting. And second question, what did this, how the first floor goes to the back here? Doesn't have access to the rear yard?
The first floor entrance to the apartment is in the back of the house. In the picture, I think you can see the door. Oh, it's next to, I'll show you. The first floor
It's
apartment's
over here, the house
access
is-
is from the first
It's from the
floor.
first floor, so,
Yeah, it's right
so it's right from here, so they
Yeah.
go out just up.
Yeah.
In terms of materials, the materials that you show in these pictures they're fine. The problem is, there's no way for us or for me to tell how this is gonna look from looking at the picture and, and the plans. We still need an elevation, and you also have a sliding door that needs to be drafted properly. And,
That should have been, there's a sliding door in the plan as well.
It's aluminum?
no, but there's no
It's
elevation,
aluminum.
I don't see an
It's
elevation.
aluminum, it's aluminum wrap?
Yeah, I
It looks
can't,
like
I
a-
can't tell, I'm gonna get there.
There's no A3 drawing.
Let's get there, I mean, I think.
There are
we-
elevations, but it's not included in the set. Calls out A3.
Let's go down.
Do you have an A3 drawing? So you got an A3 in that set? It's only A1 and A2. here.
This is from the ZBA. This, that was from the zoning board.
I mean, sure.
Oh,
But that wasn't the one presented today. AHRB.
Yeah, no, we,
It's close.
Truth is, it looks better on the elevation.
yeah.
I know, but it also is in this drawing that was submitted to us,
It's not submitted.
so I can't use that as a,
Sign off.
Why don't you include it in our packet?
Okay, I didn't realize that it wasn't even included.
Right.
Are you
is there a side, I mean, is there more? Just the one? No.
No, there's a little bit more, but, okay, yeah, just that one drawing. Is there any intent to put any sort of concrete pad or any kind of stone or pavers underneath the deck?
Not right now, no.
You just really create an area of shade, nothing will grow under there, and it moves forward about 7 or 8 feet in front of the house.
Yeah, it looks like it's more than that, actually. We have to take it.
I mean, right now, there's moss there, because there's no sun that gets to that area also, because of really hard places, so it doesn't get sun at all.
Mike, can I see the material photo again? When you were doing it?
What's that?
You wanna go and work the rear yard?
Aluminum rail on wood.
Well, I know, it's not drawn here, but there's another house that's right here.
It's just a
Oh,
circle.
there we go. Where are we?
Yeah. And you can see in the picture.
I mean, look at how close that is. So now, this thing's gonna be out here like this, right? So now you're on the second level, and these are windows into, you know, bedrooms, and, you know, you get people here, it's like that. It's not small. This is, what's dimension here, 14 feet.
The side that's closest to the neighbor's house, will have, that's where the staircase will be, so the end of the deck won't really be at the end of the house, because the staircase will be coming up that way. And then on the other side, the house comes out, where there's a bathroom that
It's like the stairs on that
Yeah.
side, so it's like the stairs on that side, so no one's really gonna be standing up this edge.
I mean, I won't be sitting there.
Yeah, but you could still put it,
The same thing on the other side, the bathroom protrudes from the side of
you
the
know,
house.
it's not like, it's still, you know, the other house, it's something like,
Put some trees there.
yeah. I know, but that's,
No,
this is what I'm,
well, the fact is that it's not gonna be visible from anywhere except for that house.
I know, I just,
And does the neighbor have a problem?
Let's look at the object.
You know?
It's the character of the house. And the neighborhood. I was more concerned about the proportions of the this.
well, I think if you have comments about that, we should make them now.
I'm
So-
sorry, yeah, what did you say?
I'm saying is, if you break it, maybe another deck on the bottom, so it's two, it breaks the mass.
Yeah, the downstairs is not, it's somebody else, right? It's a two-family house.
Yeah, but you own the house, right?
Yeah,
And you.
But you
can't
have
do-
someone else living downstairs.
correct, my parents,
Oh, okay.
so they don't mind.
Oh, so you can do, yeah, so you want to kiss them out. I mean, the other, yeah, we were just talking about, if you're gonna come back with that submitted, with that elevation submitted, and we're gonna walk through your backyard. One thing to consider, just, can you come up here so we can show you this little sketch? Yeah, is maybe, sorry, why don't you?
My concern is when you see this house, this entire lower area is kind of sad.
Yeah,
Not
so you
because
cut
of-
off the light from those windows.
But also architecturally, it's like this is very narrow and very out of proportion to what it is, and being these two very massive. So one way of minimizing this volume that's coming is to create another look-alike deck. You can deck it or not, but to break them.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we wanted to put a stone patio or something, so there was
Right.
another space under there
And that's the.
at
that's-
some point, but
that's the
that's not
solution.
part of this plan.
So why don't you prepare it, and at some point you build it? You approve it, and then let's look at it. It looks strange as a big massive deck with a double height space under that is, it's not a proportion.
I mean, it'll be the same proportion if there's a patio under there, it'll just
Yeah,
look
great.
prettier.
So
What, is it a
we're
beauty
about to-
contest, or?
That's why we are here.
Because, I mean, nobody will even see that area under the deck at all because of the garage, you know, the back of the house. The only time anybody will see it will be is if they're coming to my house, or,
We
you
try
know,
to-
but we're gonna have a fence up also. Part of that was a 5-foot fence.
But we try to think that the houses have 4 elevations, even 5, the roof. So we treat more or less all of the elevations with the same respect.
Okay,
Okay?
so you're saying you won't approve the plans until I change them and put a patio underneath it?
Now, first is, we need to incorporate this into our architectural review board package,
Okay,
this elevation. Second is we will walk the site, see how the impact in the neighborhood or the rear yard neighbors.
mhm,
And I will encourage you to consider some treatment to the bottom portion, not just an abandoned, most shaded area.
yeah, I mean, that would be the long-term plan, but that wasn't the plan at the moment.
Because you're creating a most area into a worst.
Well, I would
You-
invite you
you
to
worsen
come
it.
when the sun is in the middle of the day, because there is no sun there on the ground, on that area also,
Let's look at it.
without the deck, because the sun is in the front of the house.
If you are around in the weekend, we can walk
Okay.
on that track.
Would it make sense just to consider like railroad ties and gravel at other side, so at
Mhm.
least there's a completed drainage area, because this deck is gonna collect water. It's just gonna pour down into that area and create sort of mud and more moss. So if you would even consider, I think, some kind of a treatment, that just low-cost treatment, just to finish that zone underneath, might be a way to make it more appealing, at least until you decide what to do longer term.
Well, they actually sell something you put under Trex that diverts all the water, and then you can hook it up to a spout. So it goes away from the side of the house.
But to answer your question, the big question you have, that answer is you do have to do it the right way, irrespective of whether that was your intention. So what's good for you is not always what's good for everyone around you. And we're here to help interpret what everyone around you may see in the long run. And so I understand you don't want to build a bottom deck, and I get the budget issue, and I sympathize with that. But I also we also have to put ourselves in the position of your neighbors. And so I think and maybe you're right, and I have been by the back of your house a million times. But, and I don't know if you can see it so well, but I think that it would be a pretty big thing for your neighbor if it were a problem. And so I think it requires us to pay a little more attention to this than we initially thought.
Absolutely, I mean.
You, both us and you.
Yeah, I mean, I get
And
that
whoever's designing your deck.
And I appreciate that you're here to make sure people don't do crazy things and, make the neighborhood look unattractive. But I want you to come by and see that you can't really see the back of the house at all.
Yeah, and I get your problem too. I mean, I understand why you're doing it now. So I think we just have to look at
And
that
I could
collectively.
get letters from my neighbors if that would make, their opinion.
That matters a lot,
If
yeah.
that matters.
Yeah, I think particularly the one neighbor, sort of closer to the
closer.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's gonna be most severely impacted by this. I think you're right about the other neighbor who looks at the site plan, they're a little farther away, the house kind of juts out. I don't see any direct sight lines there, but I think that one neighbor in the sort of light colored house next to you. So that will go a very long way.
Okay.
Um,
No problem. Is there anything else I can help with before we come back to the meeting? So that-
Yeah, no, exactly, I would like, if we feel that it's okay, if we go, we think it's reasonable, then I don't want you to have to come back another time. So that's why I'd like to get all our comments in. I don't know if anyone else has comments about
No, it's
railing
a track
height.
system
Yeah,
with an aluminum rail,
correct.
the way it was shown.
Yeah, it's the same, it's a gray, it matches the house more, the color. That was from the pamphlet. But it's essentially the same color as the house, so it blends in. It's
The
not like a-
decking is,
Yeah, and the decking is in the backyard, so it's actually physically there, so you can see it.
okay,
It's not like it's a white deck on a dark house
Yeah.
that it's gonna stand out either, so.
okay. So then, no, we don't have anything else.
Okay.
But we will be by probably independently over the next week or so.
Okay. I'll be home,
Okay, I'll knock on your door.
okay?
Do we need the drawings?
Submit that one drawing.
Yeah, I think we
That
We
one
need that.
elevation,
A3.
The element
Which was
A3,
part of your
okay.
zoning set.
Okay, yeah.
This smaller size is fine, we don't need the big drawing, you can even be smaller than this. We just need the whole package to look at
Okay,
holistically.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to continue this application, yeah, your seconds. Unanimous. Okay. Dan, may I keep this copy? Dan, can I keep this, or is this? Okay. Next on the agenda, 35 Bel Air Drive, please. Right here. Put them on the end. 292 Palisade Avenue.
I have a material palette that I sent out to everybody to come in.
Can have.
Because I didn't want to bring in Bluestone.
You say you didn't want to
Big
carry,
heavy-
you didn't want to carry it in?
Big heavy, all these heavy materials for outside. Fine. So I tell you, 5 years ago, when we started Reno, and everything except for they,
Could you introduce yourself and
Christine Hill, 292,000.
There are a lot of detailed drawings that we don't need in here, and there are some, the drawings that we do need are a bit confusing. So, and the drawings we need are the exterior elevations. And by the exterior elevation, you know, we want to see this drawing, which is the front of the house, but the notes are confusing and contradictory, and there are lines in here that are not identified.
Which I have a feeling are, so I'm an interior designer, and I'm an architect.
Okay.
And he can't be here tonight because he's fixing another. So, my guess is that most of the questions that you're gonna have will be for him, but you know, we can go through what might be missing or contradictory and talk about.
Sure. Could you tell us what what you're doing? Just describe what it is that the house is and what you're changing. If you're adding anything, I wasn't able to find much. I see some alterations to the house, but it is listed as an addition / alteration, so I'm curious what that addition component is, because that's not clear. That's the first and most important point. And then, is that in my packet? Okay,
So, 5 years ago, we came in front of the board and had the full renovation of the house. And we decided to break it into 2 phases, which I think we were open about at the time. And one of them was the exterior, any patios or anything like that, a little driveway addition that we wanted to do. And then the add-on, there's this silly little porch in the back of the house, very close to where the garage is. And we closed up, there was a door from a bedroom out to that porch, and we actually closed that up as part of the permit last time. We came in front of you guys, and that was all approved, but we didn't do the addition. So this is just the addition onto that porch and an interior renovation that you don't care about, but obviously we have to have permitted.
Yeah.
And then a little addition to the driveway, a back patio, some new panels.
Is the master closet an addition
Yes, that is.
That's the
in
addition.
Is the master closet,
where the terrace is now?
correct.
That's going to be, so that's the new roof that you're putting on to match the existing. It's this picture.
yes, it's this, that's
It's
it.
confusing.
So it's only
That little roof.
75 square feet or
Yeah,
something.
no, that is, she's removing an existing blacktop roof and then putting on, but it's this portion. But it's not clear.
Can you help me here?
Some of the information came from previous sets, and it's an architect too, so
That's
I
okay.
don't know what he interpreted.
We'll get to the bottom of it eventually.
What's, this is the existing house?
No,
So
actually.
what is the addition?
Just that little
It's just-
roof.
I believe
It's
it's
this
just-
roof.
This is what
Yeah.
you're
Just
saying.
a roof?
It's this
Yeah, it's
roof.
actually, you can't even, the roof will change from the front slightly, but the front is not getting an addition that's there. There's a small patio that takes up about half the house,
See this?
you know, from, yeah.
This is,
It's
this
this
is
roof,
terrace?
right?
Yeah, exactly, that's it right there.
So they're just, you see, they're adding this wall, this window.
So it's
Which is on the
this,
actual
it's
back of the
basically
house.
this.
But you're on the,
No, it's here, right?
but on the back. I think
This is the,
That is the back.
Slide back.
right here.
it's this, yeah, that's it,
Yes,
it's this.
yeah. It's hard to see.
And basically you are like, replacing the roof into a standing seam, metal copper, and you have the front of it.
Yeah, making it all look continuous.
And,
What's the existing roof?
and the deck,
It's just, half.
it's, I think it's, okay.
And the landscaping is beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's more confusing the
Look at
presentation.
the landscaping.
I think probably because it's my design that somebody else is trying to interpret and present information for you, so I'm wondering if that's, you know, you can see if you think in my drawing, you know,
Yeah, this one.
that.
Yeah, it's this little bit.
This little thing at the back, right?
Correct. The roof line changes slightly in the front because otherwise you have this like double peak,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little odd.
So the balconies or the terraces are new, right?
The back terrace?
Yes.
No, it's existing.
No, but the materials are new, or not?
Oh, yeah, we put a new, there's a new rail on it
New
to
rail.
match the front. right.
And the rail is what we see here.
Yep. Steel
Yes.
with a wood top.
Besides that window going in the addition, are there any changes to any of the other openings, the windows or doors? No?
Yeah. Just can't see it from the back, from where I am.
That's really steep. Steps.
And this whole thing is steep. It's gonna come all the way down. It's a big drop off here. And they have nothing planted.
So now, how do we get, I think
This is
the,
like a little car park.
I think we have a consensus, or generally, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we all like what you're doing, now that you've described it. However, it's not represented in such a clear way that the building department can keep track of it. And I think that, and while the elevation, the
Actually, that is an
3D renderings are great and useful, I think what the building department needs are these orthographic elevations.
This is the elevation.
Yeah, I know, but if you look at the notes and the details,
Yeah, no,
everything's
you
very
can't
confused. So this
tell.
says clean, prime, and paint wood trim, and it points at the roof.
Exactly here.
Yeah, I know,
But it
but
doesn't show that this is.
what
a
is
portion
that?
of
Is
the
that,
addition.
if that's lighting, it needs to be identified, and we need to have the light fixture cut if it's an exterior fixture.
Right, I think maybe that he didn't do that.
If it's existing, yeah, I just some note, but I think just for our record and for the clarity of the building department's job when it comes to confirming that you built what was approved, we have to have a clear drawing that,
I think he might have thought too, the 3D elevations are so accurate, like, they're pretty close to everything, that he wanted to, he's weighing a lot on that. And we do have additional views that he didn't include in the set, I think just because it would have been a lot to print.
Mhm.
If there's any reason for me to submit all of those. views.
no, I don't think so. I'm,
But I have,
I think if the elevations were a little clearer and just what's new versus existing.
What's existing?
yeah, the
there.
exterior
I think that's-
elevations, just, and keep it simple, so you don't have to spend a lot of time, money on this, but just the 4 elevations with clear notes, existing to remain, new to match existing, simple notes like that. take off some of the stuff that,
So this, the A200 seems to be the most critical drawing, which is
Yeah.
the north elevation, which describes the addition.
yeah, no, there's, we have,
It's
there's
eight.
north, east,
This one.
yeah.
Is there a row of hedges in between the properties?
Yes, there is now, all of these things.
Yeah, just, when you go
We
by
don't know
here,
that it's.
they're not that far away on the
Do you have any
side.
comments about
They're
that?
actually pretty close.
Just clarify
And they sit elevated, but set back from them.
Anyone else have any
Because
comments?
their house, the house makes a turn.
Okay, so I think it's pretty, I don't think, there's no design issues to, it's just to clarify, and all we really need are, you don't need to include all the, any other renderings or even these ones, just the elevation drawings with clearer notes about what's new, what's existing, and what are those new things. So, you can clear off these notes about how to install a new tar roof, which we're not interested in. We're just interested to know that the roof is gonna match something or not match something, and if it's not, then it's identified.
I think the renderings are also showing some fencing that's not necessarily shown on the full site plan.
Good catch.
Which one, their section?
If you look at your rendering and the elevation looking off of Palisade, you have like a sightline fence here, right? That kind of backs up with the veggie garden in the back. There's no designation of where any new fencing happens in the site plan. So if you want to put a fence up, you would have to include that in the application as well. I see the distances on this, so, anything that you're doing, you have some, behind the air conditioners, right? You have some fencing that would go up for
It's all,
some privacy.
it's on there, but they're really, I guess, not noting it much.
Yeah,
see that.
I would just make sure that when you submit the elevations, any fencing that you want to put up around the property, just make sure the site plan clearly dictates that, and then just some materials and what it looks like. I
And
think
the height.
it looks nice, right? But there's certain rules on front yard versus side yard, so I think it's the limit in the front. It's not, you gotta be 4 foot in the front. I don't know how
Yeah,
far it's set back from
it
the
actually,
property.
in the renderings, you kind of, you can't tell, but it all follows code, so I'll have them note all that.
Yeah, I just,
Oh, it
It's
looks
like,
great.
Yeah, it just needs to be noted. Thank
Anything else? No. All right, thank you. Do you wanna, if you wanna submit those, I don't know that you have to, we can review those and approve those without being here unless you're gonna add something in. All right, motion to continue this to the next, yeah, your second, unanimous.
sorry.
Thirty-five Riverside Place. Is your mic on? I I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
So this is, yeah, this is a pre-submission, we're still before the planning board, reviewing different, parking options. What the homeowner is intending to do, they're building this house, it's going to primary residence. They're raising two sons there, their two sons have now left. And this is a roadside place, two-family zone. They're looking to convert the existing single-family house into a two-family house, where they would maintain possession of the lower level, because they want to have access to the yard. They would rent the upper level as accessible. So, in order to do that, where we are, survey. Proposing all of the additions we're proposing is to the rear of the house. So the only thing that's going to be going on in front is the modification related to the apartment. As far as the volume of the house, we are converting an existing garage into a living space. So there will be, the most significant change in the house on the front is the removal of the garage door. These are the options that with two residential units, 4 parking spaces on the drive. We were proposing 3 because it would avoid disturbing significant trees and vegetation that exists now. There's a nice row of trees between this house and the neighborhood house. There's a nice oak tree here. If we tried to put 4 in, we would certainly lose all of these, and we would likely lose this. So we're proposing 3. We also propose 2 deep spaces. Where we are with the planning board right now is these 2 deep spaces with this. So it would actually enable my cars to park in the, off the street, if that's what they ultimately decide to do. Sky exposure plane, we have no issue with the existing two-story house, is not proposing to increase the height in any way. The existing house is going to be so this is the existing house facing from the side. You can see the dotted of the existing lot to be removed and the windows that are being replaced. So that would really be the only difference that we can see from the street, other than because of the cul-de-sac, if you actually moved around the cul-de-sac, you would see on the side a new entrance on the side of the house, which would be for the owner's unit. This, right now, this you come in and you can go down half the flight to the first level or lower level, and out back the level to the other level. This would be the entrance to the upper level apartment, and the new entrance to the lower level apartment would be on the side over here. The addition is it's a 1-story addition on the existing 2-story house, so the upstairs, which is now a living room, dining room, kitchen, and 2 bedrooms and a bath, would effectively stay completely unchanged. The only thing is at the entrance to separate the 2 rooms. So the top floor remains unchanged, other than changes to the windows in the rear to accommodate the new roof line, and also to provide a little more privacy. The homeowner was concerned that when they're in their yard, they can't keep looking out windows and seeing the yard, so they want the windows facing the yard. That lighting. So the main addition on the back is to give them a 5
On your east elevation, is that a chimney?
This is chimney, yeah, but you have.
Odd.
It's,
What is it, a direct vent?
it's a little, yeah, it's direct vent and, you know, keeping it smaller so that, so the neighbors looking out, that's, it'd be kind of a shame to have a chimney that didn't need to be there, even though it would look nicer. Could potentially block views of our neighbors, so we just kept it as small and as simple.
So it's new or it's existing?
That's
new.
That's all, that's in the.
It's just odd.
That's in the. There's a
Oh,
good-
is that
there's a
what
good
this-
chance
this
it will
thing?
actually be.
Oh. I thought we were, yeah, okay. Yeah, that.
No, that was fine to me.
Yeah, no, I'm
This is
getting-
odd.
That will be eliminated.
I think it's,
Don't let me start. Do you have a photo of the front of the house?
This is heading down the side, that's the existing front house.
So, just firstly, I'm concerned about the front of the house being converted into a parking lot. And I understand that there are parking requirements for, 2 units. However, right now, it's a driveway and a walkway, and I think there's a healthy balance. And when you obliterate that and you turn it into a big paved area in front of the house, I think it's a problem. I think it's not in keeping with the neighborhood. So I'm not, again, this is not a submission, so we're just giving you a few things that come up.
And we completely agree.
So that has to be contended with, and we'll communicate our thoughts to the planning board.
This is what we initially submitted. We didn't carry over the old one too. And I think we all felt that before we're considered universally accepted as not being a great option.
Well, I don't think 3 I think 3 is a pretty bad option too.
Yeah, the homeowner is intending to go to the planning board meeting with the hope of getting them to agree to this one, which would provide 4 on-street parking spaces and still maintain the one.
All right,
I mean, you're also effectively creating an entrance to the second residence, right? Right next to what could be potentially the bedroom of the house next door,
Yeah.
right? So the proximity of that and what they look upon every day and,
yeah, so maybe you show us a
Yeah.
little something, with your site plan of what's going on.
because it looks like there's an existing hedge there. I don't know how I guess it's the entranceway is behind that existing hedge or a new one is
The new entrance is
here, right?
back here.
So go back to the photo, the front view of the house. So there's plantings between the two houses now?
There are some, there's not a lot.
I mean, that doesn't, from this view, right, because we don't have that in front of us, that looks,
Actually, you can see better along this edge, you can kind of get it, you can see a hint of it here, but there is a fence and there is some,
it just seems like a lot going on a very small
Small lot.
plot and land next to neighbors. And the house alone, from a size standpoint, at the square footage that it is with an addition, to turn it into a two-family house just seems a little odd, honestly, just from a size standpoint and the way it
Well, it's actually
looks.
making it more consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. I mean, there's many multi-family houses on the street.
But not of this size.
Actually, I mean, we can look around.
I think the other issue is that the lot width is only 40 feet in a 50 feet required lot. And that's why you're having a problem with the parking. If you had that additional width, you could have parked on the side
That's a much different size house, right?
and a bigger lot.
And a bigger lot.
I don't know that this is much bigger. I mean, obviously, these houses are pretty close.
It's a single.
this house is a much bigger lot, a much bigger house, because they just did this addition, which I'm sure.
It's also a single family, right?
I don't know how many units that is. I was assuming that it was two, because the way it's set up, it looks like that, but I don't.
I mean, they all have, all the houses that you pointed out have one entrance at the front,
There's this-
right?
This is all the same house. So there's this entrance and this entrance.
Ah,
So,
looks like two lots that got merged to one.
In the, what is the distance between any of the parking and the new face of the new bedroom, the new master bedroom?
That will
Looks like
depend
two
on
houses.
the planning board's decision.
Looks like an addition that gets removed, but it's completely different. Doesn't look-
In this one, it's about 6 feet, you know, that was the minimum we felt we could have decent, you know, area for planting. In this one, it's about 12 feet, this is the same.
And you don't need zoning approval for the width of the lot? I understand it's existing, but
Yeah, it's pre-existing, and everything that we're proposing, I mean, parking, how we handle the parking is not, you know, I mean, the side, the little bump on the side complies, and the lot coverage is all fine, and you know, obviously the height is not, so not an issue.
okay, let's get to a few more things and get, I think I sense where Dale was going. The front window is a little bit funny.
yeah.
It's a very large window that you're covering up with shrubbery and
Yeah, I mean, it just proportionally, that the window on the lower level from the front elevation, it doesn't work that well with the upper window.
Yeah, it's not.
And then just going around, I'm just gonna go around the house quickly. The entranceway that you have, the new entranceway, covered entry porch, it's a bit odd how the door is off center from the roof line and the covered entry. And then on the east elevation, I'm still confused about what this concrete element is. If you're building a chimney, then build the chimney. I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't know what it is, but it should be resolved in a better way. Other than that, I think, you know, that where you are matching windows and siding and trim and everything is the right approach.
I just want to add that in the proposed addition in the back, the roof line should be much simpler. I don't know what, I think that you can do it a very simple roof line with a bay window addition, and what's happening there is very confusing. I can show you how to. Huh? Sorry. Just do it. You know, simple, an addition if you want to do, and that's it. So, because the way that this is what he's doing here is very strange.
Now you transition to
See,
Yeah, it's a
the
hip
west
on one side
elevation.
and a gable on the other.
Yeah, it's a very strange roof. You can simplify
Oh,
it,
yeah,
very
that's
simple.
It is, it's very
You
strange.
can do it like this. Just
Can you make it hip
simple
on both
one with
sides?
a bay window
Well,
inside.
I mean,
Well, that's what he's drew.
Yeah,
hip
we-
on
Oh,
both sides.
he did.
so it's not actually steeper, it's just, it's really the hip and the gable.
It's, this, you also almost,
Yeah, well, we, that's where we started, but to give them the size that they wanted, it got bigger, so that's. what
it's the
affected.
same footprint.
So that's,
Yeah, can you hip it on both sides?
we could hip it on both sides, but it actually, because, with that window, that short window like that,
Which one?
the, right above your pen.
This
Right.
one?
This one?
Nope, nope, that is, that's the one. That, you know,
That doesn't change anything.
it doesn't change it, but
We're
when-
eliminating this and then.
with the roof under that, it made that window look intentional. And with a lot more siding under it and the roof cutting
Oh,
down,
well,
it felt like that window should be
All I'm
taller.
saying that the massing of the
Yeah.
addition is very strange. Just to like something in character with the house. Very, just a simple pitch here,
Yeah.
like a hip, very simple, and also I don't see why, you have to set it back here, just go like simple roof.
zoning.
But just hit the wall here, but the roof is a simple roof.
And have the
Setback,
overhangs
you
be
mean?
different? I mean, does that, I mean, does the
What I'm
roof,
saying-
does the roof centering on the house, does that, in addition, doesn't?
It's a simple
I think you're gonna have to
house,
adjust it because of the
very
entrance
simple
anyways, no matter what.
roof.
Right?
And then you have this as a, I think it's
I
simple.
mean, we can certainly look at it again. You know, I mean, like I said, the reason for the gable on that side,
Yeah, but look at
for the
this.
shed on that side,
But you agree with, your agreement with me that this creates all kinds of,
Yeah.
this is very simple house.
No?
I agree with, this can be resolved.
Yeah.
It's an architectural
Yeah.
problem. It's sided, and that's the.
Yeah, I always resist citing chimneys.
But this is not a chimney, it's a direct
Yeah.
vent, so,
Fair enough.
so architecturally, you can resolve it, maybe a different material.
Like I said, I think there's a strong chance it won't be there at all, so it's.
So that's a minor issue, but the major issue is the character of this parking lot in front of the house, I think, which has to be resolved either with landscape or architectural, and the way it's presented.
Yeah, like I
by
said,
the
our hope is that they'll agree to the two double deep, so that way they can get 4 cars off the street, and still have a walkway, which the homeowner would like to.
I think it's,
And that, you know, rather than feeling like you're walking up to a parking lot to get to.
that's something that you can discuss with them, but
Yeah.
here, we have to
No,
prove
and I
it. that
appreciate
it-
those comments, we agree, and, you know, if you wanna pass that on to the planning board. that would
How
be-
to make it, how to work out the challenges.
Yeah, so that makes sense to us too.
Okay, any other comments?
No, I think the addition and just everything that's being proposed dramatically impacts the character of the house and potentially the neighborhood in general. Putting a parking lot in front of it, turning it into two-family with an addition that doesn't look like it should have been there, right? Actually, architecturally makes it pretty undesirable.
Well, drive through the neighborhood, because you'll find, you know, there are several houses that will support your theory, because you'll see the parking lot where the whole front yard is paved. You know, so it's, you know, and this is not, yeah, obviously, visually, it's not gonna appear any bigger, because we toyed with that too. We toyed with creating a steeper pitched roof so that we could use an attic space and turn it into a 2.5 story. It's became much more complicated, we figured it had much more impact on the neighbors, because this has really very little impact on the neighbors.
I wouldn't say that. Your neighbor's now gonna, there's a pathway to another residence
Yeah, but
that
it's-
cuts right behind,
But
so.
also, if the client's owners want to have, would like to entertain the idea of having a two-family house, I think it's worth.
Listen, they're well within their right, but at the end of the day, I think it still dramatically impacts the way the house looks.
In
right?
the picture that I saw of the actual property, is there already a path there?
There is a path, yeah, and we're reusing the same path. So the path is there. You know, he has a very good relationship with his neighbor. He's actually hoping that he'll actually eventually maybe even buy that house. But,
Turn the other one into a parking lot.
yeah.
It'll be good for everybody, right?
That's right on the riverside.
Yeah, be great.
Well, the parking lot's not our first choice either, we're just trying to, they're trying to stay in town, they've lived here for a really long time.
Yeah, no, we understand. All right, no motion to be made. We'll see you, we'll send our notes to the planning board and we'll see you back.
Thank you, Mayor.
75 Main Street, please.
Actually, saw change along two-story. Here's the existing elevation in the approved set of plans. It shows the existing garage doors on the entry unit. And this actually shows the elevator being on the right side, close to the building.
Are you able to zoom in on that a little bit? Because, or, we have a copy of your proposed, but I don't have a copy of the previously approved.
That's why I was just showing you that, I have that here. How we're gonna do it.
Well, maybe we can, do you have a copy?
Yeah, I don't have
Can we look at that?
It's not great. So this is the approved right here.
Yeah, let's grab it, just because, this may or may not pan out.
Which of the balconies that he's replacing?
Well, that's what we'll see.
Okay, so here's what was approved.
Okay,
So here, this is showing here where we're proposing to put the garage door, and we're proposing to leave it there. And then over here, on this elevation here, we have the elevator adjacent to the building, and what we're doing is moving the elevator adjacent to the new structure, but not changing any of the height, it just shifts over.
so where the second garage door is, you're replacing that with a window?
We're replacing that with a window. How do you get the next?
Okay, that
Basically, I think.
looks fine.
Wanted that at the beginning. Go ahead, go on.
We're gonna get the paper copy, so.
That's actually straight. Find it first and then.
Right there. So here, see how that, go up one. Right there. Okay, so basically, you can see from here, there, we just swapped out the garage door for the, window. And the reason why we initially proposed the garage door there, because it was an existing opening. But during the construction, we had to, because the structure, we took the whole section out. So we thought it would look better to have a window than a garage door.
Compositionally, I think it does when I look at this, so the window's fine. If I remember correctly, you were salvaging those windows
Yes.
and repairing them, so what are you gonna put in the new window opening?
Well, we took the window from where the core is,
Yeah,
we took that window out and we're gonna restore that window, put it in place when they're all the same.
oh, great, okay.
So it's
All right, so that one's easy. Let's go,
Yeah, and
let's
then
look at the next
The
change.
other one is the elevator, which you can't tell here, is the elevator was on the right side, okay, adjacent to the building, and we just shifted it to the left side. That's it. Doesn't really impact.
You had a window there before, right?
We had a window there before, but now we have a, because the elevator was, now the elevator's against the new building, so that doesn't really.
Okay.
So could you go back and could we just look at the previously approved version of that?
So this,
It's next one. It's this one.
Okay.
okay, so here's where it is right here.
So what are we seeing differently in that?
That window's gone.
The window's gone because, and we made like a trellis over there with plantings, because that's actually the staircase going to the, that's the egress staircase.
So could you just describe all the differences? Let's just stay on this drawing. You
Right.
can just leave it just like that.
So the difference.
Just
is-
tell it, everything is different about the approved to the proposed.
The windows are the same here. The only thing is this second tier
Okay.
becomes panelized here. Because this actually is egress, this was the egress for the stairs. But when we move the elevator, this becomes the egress. Interior wise.
So that's now an access door. that's
No,
there.
before it was an access door to the terrace,
Okay,
and now, actually, it is one single door right now. And the single door to the terrace, and then we just, have it at the terrace.
so,
Over here.
and above that, you also have a rail now that's added above the window. What was the material there above before?
That's just a,
Parapet roof.
that was the roof
But those windows have changed, the ones in the middle.
the window configuration, I think.
Yeah.
This window becomes now a picture window. It's actually better.
No, you have less glass in there.
What?
You have less glass in what you're proposing.
No, we have, we'll switch over there. We have, basically, the entire, pretty big picture window.
You see,
What
you have,
happens now is, this becomes,
yeah, that glass up,
this glass, this becomes a two-story, lobby. Because we internally, we shifted the egress stairs. So what we mean is, right over here, this is a two-story lobby. So you come in, this high ceiling right here, and the egress stairs are over here. The egress stairs are over here, and when you get to the first floor, they shift to the back, you walk this way.
right, but in the old picture, you had, above the W6, you had glass. Now you have
Above
lattice.
this, right over here, there's no glass.
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
the one in the middle.
level.
Right here?
Yep, right,
Yes.
right there. You
Yeah,
had
what
glass in
panels
the
above?
old picture, which looked much nicer.
I mean, we could put a transom over there too.
Well,
Okay, for what, question for you is this, the material that you use in the
Orientation of
corrugated
the
metal
paneling is different too.
Well,
Yeah.
the material on the,
Right.
on the front elevation, that's a new addition, right?
No, I mean, it looks like it's a different pattern, or different,
No, the
one
material.
vertical
it's a
versus
new-
horizontal.
Horizontal ribbing or trellis or
The
whatever that
material
is.
one,
Oh, yes,
one
this
point
is
seven.
Looks like the aluminum
trellis
paneling
over
is
here
different that
in
they're
front of
using.
the-
Yeah.
No,
And
but
that
the
they're
material
cladding
that
the
you have
entire
now,
addition, or that
that's a
portion
new
of it
material,
in,
correct?
in aluminum
The
as opposed to
material-
it being
I believe it's the same
glass and
material
then
except
I
for
thought it was
trellis
a-
that was inserted in front.
It's the same
a
material.
similar
that we use.
material to the
Yes.
adjacent building, right?
And now you're using it
Because this looks
pretty much
to match
consistently
this roof, right?
on the other elevations as well, correct?
Yes.
It's the same painted, same panel, now they're calling out a specific
Yeah,
manufacturer.
they're still calling it 107.
But they're,
It
that
looks
tag,
good.
that tag just goes back to
Hash.
painted, well, no, this is a painted square corrugated steel panel, it's different.
Yeah, but it looks
Oh,
good.
the 107 is different?
Yeah, it's a corrugated steel panel as opposed to an aluminum panel.
I think it's, I like it.
It's a different material entirely. I mean, there's a completely different cladded material called out now.
Yes, and it's good.
Okay, but
Okay.
that's a pretty significant change from a architectural standpoint. So do you have samples of that material?
No, but I mean, I'd like to come back if you want on that. Right now, as a project's evolving, I'm trying to hit the number goal. So I don't know if, the elevator's one thing, I don't think it's any impact something on that, and then, I mean, I'd like to do that, and, I can come back to you with this, 'cause I'm kind of on the fence whether I'm gonna go in this direction here with these, screening,
Terracotta?
terracotta, so I'm having trouble sourcing that and getting a reliable sourcing number. So, next meeting, so I can come back to you with that.
I think.
so let's
Yeah,
just,
let's
let's
go-
do one thing at a time and to simplify this a little bit. So just, I wanna go back to this connector piece. There is, so the change in geometry, which is that, the little horizontal, do you think that laser pointer?
Yes, I do.
Can I borrow your laser pointer?
Of course.
This is,
I'm glad that you're using it.
Shield your eyes.
that is new.
That's new, because that's when the elevator shift.
And the railing is new.
However, what kind of elevator is it? Because you didn't, if I'm looking at the approved drawing, and you didn't have a bulkhead.
That is correct.
So-
We never had it there, but it's the same exact elevator. It just didn't have it.
So all right, so the approved drawing was wrong.
Approved drawing was wrong. Did not have that. I think at the time, the architect didn't have the height of that bulkhead.
Yeah.
So that's why he didn't have it in there. So this is where, after this payment is not there.
Dwelling is here, this is recessed.
Sorry, where is this? Where are we hitting
What kind of elevator is it?
This is the elevator?
Hydraulic,
If you go to
So-
the last page, A105,
traction, machine room?
No,
Any of the
machine
above?
room.
No.
It's a low end of it.
Yeah, it's a hydraulic elevator, right?
It's only
Hydraulic, yeah.
2 stories.
So you need like a few feet above,
Yeah,
like 4
you
feet or
need your
something.
headroom.
yeah, the overhead.
But,
There's no machine room, it's actually, it's just,
yeah,
that's.
I didn't answer it. I was happy pointing at the drawings.
The A105, just to understand where the,
Plan,
yeah,
It's a roof plan.
the roof line.
is it set back?
Well, it's my question, how far is it set back?
It's set back pretty far, because, set back 30 feet. So it's actually 10 feet in the corner. The building's 42 feet, so it's 10 feet from the back, so it's set back 30 feet.
So
So you
that
wanna
little
see it
bit
going-
is set back 30 feet from the face of here, or the face of the
Face
connector?
of the.
Face of the main building?
No, the main building, not the setback.
Okay, so 30 feet back from here is where that little bulkhead is?
Correct, and then from the main building, obviously that setback, 6 feet, so it's 24 feet from there.
Okay, all right, so,
It's far.
can't tell
so,
it's the
so, okay, so we can live with that. Is there, and then, so in addition, you've added, can you zoom in, can you zoom in again here, just on this little connector, so we can talk with this thing? Okay. The railing is new, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, what is that? What does that mean?
I haven't really zoomed in on that, I mean, very, I would say just,
So,
I haven't bring this in.
that's okay, so remind me, was there's some kind of,
On this panel.
Juliet balcony or something, or some metal panel, or,
Basically, those are panels, and they're, metal panels, and then there's a.
What I understand is it's matching the panel, the 107s.
okay, so, all right.
The trellis that comes out.
So, yeah, that trellis piece, and then you have another guardrail here, so you're
Guardrail
gonna,
there is because that, you have access to that deck.
yeah,
That deck, so it's probably, the
So-
deck is 16 feet by,
yeah, so we're gonna match this guardrail
Right.
and that guardrail, and whatever the metal paint color is gonna match this, other metal component. Okay. Now, I think there's 2 other issues, so I'm okay so far. Are you guys, I don't know how you.
I'm good.
Then there's 2 issues that we should talk about, which are the windows and the cladding, right? Because those are the last 2 things that have changed. So right now, we're still just dealing with this portion here. So what I understand is that previously we had a glass transom panel above this window.
right.
It was more
This
like the W7 window below it, on the lower left.
So so two things have changed with the windows. One is that the lower windows now have a muntin, which is not in the previous. In the previous, it was a kind of a storefront double door on the left, and I can't tell, just a big glass panel on the right. So now we have, and I'll start here. I think this is fine. I think this change is fine. The second change, which is the transom, is there a reason that glass transom is gone, or, I don't know, tell us a little.
Is there a ceiling height
Sure,
issue? on that?
yeah.
Let's see, I mean, they're, oh, ceiling height issue. Oh, because.
I mean, was that a
Yes,
glass
I mean,
transom?
here's the thing,
Or is that a metal
this right
panel?
over here is the egress stairs going up. So I think this is a facade window right here. It's the same window, but you can't really see through it because this egress stairs come, you know, like you go in through the back and come up through here, and then it goes 90 degrees to go up to this second floor.
Not really.
So we're gonna have floor plans there.
Actually, on the page 202, the,
The stairs at the back. And it looks like that
The
whole thing on the
section
plan we were pointing to.
to the
is
lobby
like that, not the
is
outside.
different from the elevation. It's
Well, I could be wrong.
Yeah, it
Maybe
just
the
shows a big
elevator's
open
behind it.
space.
And the
a
other is
big
above. I
open
can't- I don't know
window
where they
instead
took
of.
the
Oh, they moved it, right, to this side.
I don't know where they took the,
There's no stair.
Don't you think that was
stairs
so
in the back.
low when it crossed? What happened to it?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I thought they had shown it on the beautiful
See,
one.
here it goes floor plan.
It was like
So I think the
Yeah.
architect.
it carried the
was very
line, didn't
nice.
carry the line from the other building.
Yeah,
It wasn't, good. I do remember that,
Yeah,
it
this
was a
is
very
right.
attractive feature.
because it transitioned
What's
from
right?
existing, from the new.
No, just
additional
go to the
garage
page,
To that
Mark,
connector.
go to the page.
Your page A202.
Yeah, it was like, wasn't it?
It was right across here.
Yeah.
That's not 202.
And then this was-
It's nice that the existing.
this is typical.
You have to look at this. Look, I just see.
This is as approved by Ahrb last month.
Right, so the interior part of this is changed.
Could you look at your new 202? That's what we're looking at. Your proposed A202.
Okay, well,
That's it.
Yep.
West elevation, section and lobby.
So
You just
here-
have, this is an open space.
Right, so that's where, you see how high the ceiling is and.
Yeah.
But you see, the window is drawn like it goes.
Yeah, look
all
at the
way up.
window. It goes from the bottom
Bottom
of
up
the
is
marquee
where
all the way
sides
up,
you go, right?
which is not, which is different than the elevation shows a window that goes from here, 2/3 of the way up.
Right, I think there's something off on that. I'm just gonna see if I have a better illustration.
Let's see a picture.
Because it looks to me that what I mean, I see this one, it looks like I have a better one that shows, the windows will hide there. Because that doesn't look that much, if you look at that space, I don't think this is more than 15 inches maybe, from here to here,
Okay, so too fast.
and where it looks a lot,
On the elevation, it's definitely more than 15
It's
inches.
that obvious.
elevation is off.
Anyway, Jabbar, I think just, we're gonna, let me move it along, because I think that when we look at this, if you, the section, when we look at it at elevation, actually is stronger. The way you used to have it, where you have a full height window here, and it's very, it's the same size as the door down below. It's just a stronger elevation than the one that has a lot more metal panel above the window, which is the current elevation you submitted to us. So I would go back to the, I don't know, at least adjust that proportion in the elevation.
Okay.
So it's more like this section.
Right. I think I have it, but I don't have it, it's not here. Okay.
But otherwise, adding the muntins, I think it's fine. Switching the stair, fine. And then the last issue is the material. So if we're going, I know we spent a lot of time looking at samples, the first approval. If you're gonna propose a new material for us, just bring it in and let us have a look at it. And then I'll reserve my
What are the
judgment.
children's balconies? He said he's replacing some.
Well, yeah, no, I wanted to
just
just deal
this
with this portion, and now we're gonna move on to
And
the other 11 things.
Like visible that we-
I don't know, let's find out.
Okay.
Okay, any more comments about this connector piece? Questions?
No, let's talk
Just
about-
for the, I'm not so sure that going floor to ceiling on the second floor, it looks better, but I would like to see like one against the other, just to be able to tell. They are pretty sure that it looks better, I'm not so sure.
Could the door, that's the access door on the top, be clad to match the adjacent material so that
Yeah,
it
it could.
disappears?
It could.
Might make it all
I have a
consistent.
better illustration, just don't have it here, I'll bring it next time with the samples, because it's, I don't know what happened here.
I'd like to say that I like the idea of a painted aluminum as a surface material, as a clean break from the building. That's a personal opinion of mine.
Interesting.
That's good.
I think you would see that, the
Yeah,
material.
I would like to see it short.
All right, and now we have, let's see, where's your letter? All right, so now we've looked at that connector piece. Can you keep going and tell us what else is
Okay, so
different?
I have here, this is what I'm proposing, I guess, look at the. Okay, so here's what was approved, where you have these balconies, balconies over here, and then you have the skylights over here. So now as I'm getting into the project, I simplified it a little bit, and I just made it cleaner before I have the windows across. And then, what I did was, instead of the skylights, I just carved in a balcony into the same roof line.
I make it better.
I just need like the height work for the balconies and didn't, just made it work.
And you still have the balconies on the south side?
Balconies on the south side and north side stay the same.
Okay.
All right, let's look at these side by side.
And the railing is a glazed railing, or is it just a pipe railing?
What's the pipe
So,
railing?
we go from here to
Is that really what we're gonna do?
Bart, these areas are accessible to whom?
That area is
See,
accessible
this
to,
is-
I mean, technically anybody, because
So
they go up the
they
elevator.
didn't correct the other elevations, you can actually see that other elevation
And then
as
you
well.
can go walk out into that little balcony.
So this is gonna be like, it's not needed space for
No,
a unit. It's just
all
for,
the units in the back have balconies. I'm not really sure who's gonna go on there, it just happens to be up on stage. And
Did
it's-
you see the new store? It's really nice.
and this one also as well, right?
That's the space we're talking about.
What?
That's where you're talking about, that space?
Yeah.
That space comes out of the egress, and it's there for everybody.
Just start, just put like a couple of landscape and it's it.
Yeah, I think we can do some landscape in there, that's why I propose, like, that's why I had a screen with some green growing off it and some seating area,
Okay.
you know, just like a little compound there. But the units all,
What's
all
the
units
material, is
have
it the metal, is that the
balconies in the back.
steel
I think
corrugated
it's,
metal again in there?
Whatever you're
107,
doing, you're
yeah.
doing it with care and,
It's 107 and 108, so I'm not sure.
The 108 is the metal trim that goes with it.
Okay, so yeah, it's the same.
That is really attractive from the inside.
Pardon?
A little bit attractive from the inside.
Yeah, and, you know, we talked a lot about simplifying this form. So the kind of, the idea was like, we would be
To mimic that.
mimicking this. Yeah, no, I know. I'm not sure. So I think on the, I'm moving a little slower than the other side here. Of the dice, I mean, not the opinion. But I think the Juliet balcony change is fine. I don't have any issue with that. I think it simplifies the building, which is always what I've been pushing towards. I don't know that the cutout into the new portion of the building does that, and I know we've talked quite a bit about how to simplify those roof forms so that we would bring them in line with the roof of the existing building, which is very apparent in the approved plan and much less so in this proposed one. So, I'm not sure, I know I remember looking at a few iterations similar to this. And that's kind of pushing you in the direction that was ultimately approved. So, I'm not so sure this works as well. I think maybe you need to show us a little more documentation.
Okay, I can do that.
You know, at the time, we looked at a number of 3D views of that new building, and so I think if you want to propose that change, we should look at it the way we looked at all the other versions of the roof before we came to it.
I got some time on that.
Just make sure that in page 201, you erase the video pattern from the section. Just to show.
So what was it like before?
It's much more simple.
This is the.
That's approved.
It's approved. So you can see just how simple the form is, and here now we're carving in more, so.
Well, I think the material change does that too. Makes it much more
This
more
one,
complicated.
That's right.
Right, from just a texture
See,
standpoint? It goes from just a simple metal panel
Yeah, sure.
to a
You see
corrugated
on
steel,
the,
painted steel that gives it a different feel.
It's still there, George.
So,
So is that
That
pitched away from us in the approved?
Yeah, it says.
Yes.
it's-
Yeah.
it's
Hips
it's
back.
very
just,
similar
they're
to
just
this.
skylight.
So how are the windows?
The skylight.
It's a skylight.
Oh, got it,
A roof.
thank you.
And maybe with the material change, the balconies may play better because you're trying to tie in that material. I see what you did there with the,
Right.
with the different, but
Let me come back with a better presentation on that.
Okay.
I think that would help.
So have we covered everything in your letter?
I think Louis here, I don't think we really discussed the door here. So this is gonna be a Marvin door, just to match the existing Marvin windows
Okay.
for the retail. And then I'm gonna put a little spandrel, like a little trellis on top. to match the,
what are the infill windows?
what's that?
Infill windows in the bearing wall?
I'm just gonna control the existing opening. And then there'll be-
I mean, it says, hang on, hold on. This is the back of the property
Oh,
facing the
that's on
neighbor?
back- That's on the north
You're,
side?
you're infilling those as opposed to
Yeah, we're just
restoring?
getting infill, because that's just back of the building here.
You have a neighbor, right? Well, what are they now? They're the exact windows on the other
They
side?
were all windows that just, they don't even go, they don't, there's a storage space, it doesn't even bring light to the garage. So basically, during the construction part of it, when we weren't able to salvage them like this, we had a solid block in the opens for the structure.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask you something?
New wall cladding of salvage brick from existing building?
Just when we have a document, so you're putting this, just to erase all these things that are no longer,
what is it?
Juliet balconies.
Fine, okay.
Here. This is from the old version, it's no longer, we'll update the set, so we have a record.
Okay, I can do that.
Consistent.
New wall, this doesn't necessarily, this says you're infilling them with what though?
I mean.
Right now, it's called out as new wall cladding of salvage brick. This doesn't really look like brick,
Match the brick, I just match the brick and info.
so it would just be continuous
Yeah,
brick
continuous
face all the
brick.
way
It's not that
across.
high.
I understand, I just,
Elevation jobs, yeah.
this just doesn't depict that.
Right.
This shows a different,
I
what
was
looks,
able to get the brick pretty close.
Yeah,
What's
it-
facing, is that,
it's
is
the
that
other
another
house.
building? Oh, it's a-
Yeah, yeah.
it'd be good to understand,
Yeah, if it's, it just notated.
just notated properly,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then maybe just show the whole thing as a brick face as opposed
Okay.
to breaking the hatch and, showing it there, I mean, you still show the sill, right?
Because it's got to add that whole section here, right there. That's all new brick.
This,
Right.
but,
So
okay,
that's
just,
blended,
Okay.
you won't even see it.
Except that the brick that you put in the walkway where you put the new ramp does not match anything. It
No, but
doesn't
the
match
brick-
the existing walkway, it doesn't match the building, it doesn't match anything.
Where's
So,
the brick for where?
you know where you put the ramp? The new ramp in the
I
front?
didn't put in brick there.
Yes, there's brick at the edging that was being put in.
That was original brick.
It's new brick.
The brick on the
I
ramp
was there
side?
when they were installing it, I was walking
No,
past.
on the Chestnut side or on the,
Actually, even on Main Street, it turns from there and doesn't match what was
right, so
existing.
so what happens
It
is,
doesn't match anything.
when I do the final wash on the brick, it will blend it in, because right now you got residues. I could, it's like, there was, the options were I mean, to try to match it exactly, was really tough. So,
It just looks like brand new brick that's, you know.
no, it wasn't, it was recycled brick, I got it.
No, this is just the walkway portion that I'm talking about. You know where you put the new ramp,
Right?
right? There's a little piece of walkway after the ramp, and then between the edge of the walkway and the road, there's
Oh, those are pavers.
brick pavers.
Yeah.
Those brick pavers are like brand new, they don't match
I
anything.
did, but that's the only thing, they don't, I couldn't match the other ones. I mean, oh, you're talking about the edging of the curb.
Correct. There's old pavers that are existing on Main Street, and the difference is pretty stark.
Right, I mean, I took, the guy across the street kind of did the same blend. I thought mine was a little better.
Take a look.
No, I did, I mean, it was not, there was limited choices, you know.
Okay, so a couple of things that we didn't get to. Remove benches, added planter. What is that? This is, so I'm looking at A202, your note, so I'm just going through your, where we've covered A201, we've covered A202, except remove benches, added planter. So what are we talking about?
That's
I don't
happening recently.
This is your letter
I know,
that
but
came
I
to
didn't
me
remove
with,
any,
it's at the back.
in the back, there was a planter in the back.
is that
I
what
guess,
this is down here?
right, but I didn't know this was on, I guess it is. Anyway, in the back, we're putting there was a bench there,
Yeah.
and now we're basically gonna take the existing wall down to 18 inches and make it a planter.
Okay, so
I think that was on the site for approval.
that's what this is, okay. Yeah, it's this, right? It's this thing right here.
Yep.
Right.
So this is just gonna go, this little piece right here was gonna be a bench, and is now gonna be a planter?
There was gonna be a bench in that area, and then the site plan said they didn't want a bench there because they want people sitting there, so they wanted me to make it a planter.
I don't want people sitting there.
That's cool.
All right, can I have this, I just wanna make sure. Fine, okay,
And who
got
said
it.
that?
I don't know, so that's what I was.
No loitering in town. Infill windows, structural bearing, we covered that. Additional roof details at elevator bulkhead. So I think, is there anything specific there that we need to look at? I think we're okay with the general idea of the bulkhead because it's set back 24 feet from that connector building. 105 roof plan. Okay. Any more?
No, I just want to find out, what happened to the brise soleil that we had approved many moons ago? You know, there was a piece that was going across in the new portion.
Is that this thing right here?
Is that still there? I can't make
Yeah, I
out
think,
one.
I mean, I think that's
Oh,
what,
that's what that is?
yeah,
You just see it as a.
it's just,
It's, okay,
yeah, you see, if we should see it
on the
on the
side?
side, you see, we
Oh,
have
yeah,
it
yeah,
here.
yeah, I see it.
Yeah, it's only
No, there.
from the lower window.
Yeah, so we should, yeah, so we should
That's it.
have it right there. Okay. All right, so are you have what you need from us to make some updates to this?
Yes, I mean, given where I'm at, I mean, can I proceed with, you know, some of these things before, I need to, the garage door's critical for me right now. And,
So
I guess some of the other-
where's this picture relative to your plan? Because obviously the existing building line is way back here,
So right here.
right? So you're showing the window, this window is actually in the new connector
So here's
piece?
where it is right here, you see this window here? So I'm
Yeah.
taking this window and basically putting it right over here. So it's in line with the other windows. This opening was existing right here, but you can see there was nothing left, so in the best interest of making the structure sound, we're just gonna put a beam across. And then, now we can put a beam across here and infill this whole thing. And then this here, from this line over to the corner comes out, because that's where our core is.
Yeah, so,
So I'm taking this window from the core and putting it in here.
so
This
this,
side
Yeah, we infilled the windows too, by the way.
When you come
I-
back, when you want to propose additional materials or change
So
to this,
this
can you
line-
please bring the original proposed materials?
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
And Bart, just update the drawings.
So
You
this
see
is
in the
like
list, there is
Right.
still reference to old stuff.
I mean,
Right, I'm gonna update it.
That's
Just
the only change.
update, just go.
I think it looks better with the window instead of the garage door.
Old stuff.
So I think that's fine.
yeah,
That's fine. And
By the way, the store looks great.
That looks great.
well, to answer your question, I think some of the stuff we're fine with, right? The garage door and the window issue is fine with us. But the whole connector piece, I think, still,
Right, I wanna come back to you with that.
if you need to start putting your elevator in place in a different location, we're okay with the elevator moving.
Right.
So it's just the question is how to resolve the window and the material. So I'm not comfortable approving this set, although I don't think any of us are gonna give you any issues with the garage door, the window, the elevator location, when you come back with this as a whole package. If there are issues, it's gonna be the size of the window, the material on the connector building, and whether we're recessing or not in the, the elevation on Palisade, of the roof portion.
Right,
So,
but I mean, the other stuff, I can do the windows on the side of the existing building, limited Juliet balcony and stuff.
I don't, again, I don't have any issue with the Juliet balcony. Okay, so we're okay there.
It's
I
fine.
mean, it's garage issue, just some
You know,
stuff
I-
to keep me going, then, I don't know, we'll come back, with revised drawings with a better presentation of the core and then cut out the back.
Yeah, the more complicated issues, are not urgent for
No,
you
no, they're-
anyway,
Right
so.
now, I wanna get them, the next meeting after, get them to you with the approved, like I said, the approved, parts and then with the, so, we can then help them there.
So I'm, no approval on anything, but I just,
I can go ahead with
We're-
the garage, and go ahead with the windows, and then.
you are, we're not approving a drawing. But in concept, we don't have any issue with this. If it, you have to
Got it, I got it. Let me just, I
sign,
got it, all right, good.
so, we'll continue this to the next, motion to continue this to the next hearing. There are seconds. Unanimous, okay, continue. But include the approved drawings in this. You can give us a smaller,
Smaller set.
but we gotta have, just, you can remove all the stuff that's not important and just show us what was approved right next to what is proposed, so we can make a quick visual check and
It'll be
get
better,
cut right to it.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Or you take your
130 Palisade Street.
Pass this down to Tim.
Thanks, no. Toward it. Hi.
I'm Simone Noyes, I'm the owner of 130 South Street. And I was here a couple of weeks ago, but I think Michael and Dipty, you weren't here, so I'll just give you a quick overview of the situation, but, pace me along if you want to put something. So, my husband and I bought this small house on 150 Palisade Street, and started to renovate it. Very quickly became apparent, and you'll see from the site plan, the house is very small, it's just under 1,500 square feet. As we were renovating it, we quickly noticed that we needed to extend the home in order to make it workable for us. We also really liked Dobbsbury and want to stay here. So started to look up at an extension to really utilize the house as it is for live space. And then, as you can see in the floor plans, use the extension to really make it more of a service area. So the added space needed for the kitchen, a couple of bathrooms, growing family. I just got a baby a couple months ago. So we also saw that we thought we could make it to a two-bedroom with mat and the master bedroom. One of the bedrooms turned out to be like 9 by 8, so really small. We need the space. In addition, my husband is an artist, so we wanted to create a space which you see also on the third floor that he can really utilize as workspace. Rubber views, having light that really, it all came together in what you're seeing. So this is the site. Our lot is relatively large in the neighborhood. Again, our house is pretty small. This is when you look towards the house, and you see the arrow is the house. From the other side, or from the river off to Main Street. So you can see there's a lot of houses with a lot of stuff in the back. And you have a nice garden that I actually want to keep. Also something why we want to keep the house nice. This approach with you, the house is behind our garden. So this is our garden, these are the houses on Main Street. What we submitted in March was this. No, this is not it. This is from today, all right? I'm going to pull up, and actually, so what we submitted is something that has since evolved. So we handed out packets, and what I would love to take you to is submission 3. If you want to pull that up on the computer,
Open it through in the new packet.
Yes.
Should there be something just at the beginning of the meeting?
So, we
Different.
worked over this, we figured out essentially the board.
Here, you can share.
It's all different.
What I really took away,
This is what we got in our,
So we got one thing in our packet, and then,
There's some additional
did you get that extra?
No.
You want to look at mine?
so we came in a couple weeks ago, we took your feedback into consideration. I think one thing was how to tie specifically also from the street view, tie the third floor into the house, simplify the balcony area. I got the feeling that our ambitious, creative idea of it ended up, we just tried to simplify the balcony area, and there were a lot of windows and things going on. There was also the idea, I think Dale, you brought it up, to potentially look at a hip in the roof to make it not as straight and stark, but to give a little bit of movement there, and also with the neighbor, to see if we can maybe lean away from his house just a little bit. So all those inputs actually
helped us get to this point, which I find is to us, even better resolution. So just taking you through some thoughts is, when you stand on the street and you look at the house, we added this gable, and when we started looking at it, what it really helped us to do in our minds is tie this to this structure. There's like wood paneling here, some interest in the house that we felt would nicely come through on the top. And then we changed the windows on the third floor to come apart, to not have too many different types of windows. Before we had like these mashed together double windows. So took this apart a little more. A reminder, to us is always that on the third floor, because it's recessed, you won't see if the window is exactly on top or slightly to the side. So looked at a couple of different options, but really felt that this worked nicely in terms of also addressing the idea of more transparency. Again, we added a hip here. And then from the driveway side, we took out all of the windows that were here and just really made it simpler with the door. And then this is the gable that from the side view. And one interesting comment was that the addition looked almost squished onto the house. That was not the word, but that it almost was too close and maybe to pull it apart a little bit, which we tried to do here with adding this almost like a zipper element on the side. So the house as it stands is even more refined now, and Ahrb came by to look at the house, and we saw, it's fairly small, it's old. We definitely want to refurbish it to make it look a little more polished, but for us it's important to keep the house as is and build something that's creative to reflect our personal taste and gives us the space that we need as a family.
I was not at the last meeting, and I wish I could have communicated this to you then. So many of the things you're saying are about what the intention of the addition is, how you want to use it, how that how that is going to reflect your lifestyle and your growing family, and so it makes it harder because you seem like you have all the right ambitions. It makes it a lot harder to give you this kind of news, but this proposal is really fundamentally flawed. And the reason I say that is because what it is it's a structure that has kind of landed on another structure in all the wrong sort of ways. And when we think about additions to houses, there's a residential design guideline which gives a very simplified approach to adding to a house. And the concept is you add wings to the main house, right? That diagram that you will find in the design guidelines, it doesn't apply to your site and your particular problem. Which means you need to think about it in a different way. It means that you have to build, potentially, in the long axis of your lot, which is partly you want to maintain your garden, and I understand, but also if you look at the kind of typology, how do people in your neighborhood get more square footage? You have a narrow lot that's long, you build a long, narrow house. So I understand a little bit what the problem is, but the solution is not to take another, kind of faux traditional structure and then plant it on top of a roof of a relatively traditional house. It it doesn't work at all. I'm sorry to give you this news, it doesn't work, and there's no refinement that will bring it into line with something that's acceptable.
Yeah, so, I hear you.
So what's the
I'm-
solution, right? How does your husband get a view of the river to paint, which I totally get? How do you get more square footage?
Yeah.
Where do you go from here? And that's what I want this discussion to be about, not
Yes,
that,
I would like that too, and, just to add, I have very nice neighbors, and as I say, I really like where I live, so I'm trying to make this work. What I will say is, you actually have, the houses around me, I think. I don't know that just, this is my direct neighbor to the right, and I don't know, just building, and again, with all due respect, a box onto the back one, it doesn't really serve my purpose. And I really wanted to, I was actually inspired by some of the houses around and some of the towers and some of the, I guess, quirky things that I've seen. And, you know, it was something like that that I felt gave us the liberty to come up with something a little more creative.
I think
And,
this,
yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I'm not suggesting you build a bigger box.
Okay, great.
And I encourage you, and you will really need to find creative solutions. I actually think this is not a creative solution. I think this, for lack of a better term, is it's a bad diagram, right? It's actually not a creative solution. Someone's just taken, you know, a little house and plopped it on top of the back.
That's what you perceive.
That's right, but in this forum, what I perceive is relatively important to how this
Of
goes.
course, absolutely.
So, I think that this needs to be approached again from scratch. And I don't believe that you need to forego something taller at the
Yeah.
back of your house. I just think the way that it's being done is completely wrong. So and of course, I'm one voice, one vote here. So if
Can
you,
you maybe go a little bit deeper into what you're thinking, so I
Sure.
can better understand?
If you're
Because
go-
the
yeah.
other thing that I took away last time is, at the end of the meeting, it was some changes, you know, simplifying it or, you know, pulling it away. There were a lot of things that made me think that we are, you know, the height, as you said, is not an issue. Making it even, pulling it away even more will give us square footage that we really don't need and don't want with the garden and also with the neighbors. So I'm trying to better understand what it is, that you have very, you know, that you have, that you feel like you have to start from scratch completely, because clearly things. Yeah, because
This
what I know
is a
was, right, you know.
this is a
workshop,
conversation, and we are trying to make sure that this scheme evolves
Yeah,
and is successful, because
Exactly.
what I said last time is that I think that the character of the original house is something to respect.
yeah,
The way that even, you know, I reserved the benefit of the doubt until I saw the site. And one of the things that you propose here on the new submission that is different from the one that was in the packet is this gap or separation or connector. That
Yeah,
I
that's
think
in-
that is something that if explored further can clarify. We just saw of course, respecting the differences in size, the project that we just reviewed has a connector piece that has, it's an old building with a different structure, and the connector separates both, and they somehow successfully live together. So in this case, you propose the connector, but then you destroy it. You, like,
So-
So, but just to clarify, if I can show you a sketch here.
Yeah.
For example, now, in terms of scheme, just clarify, look at this. So A, B, so there is a connector, but they're both clearly separated. And I'm just showing you just A, B, right, and the connector. That separates both and they complement each other. And then it's something that you need to.
Yeah, you know, we looked at that too, but then it felt, I feel like the tower became even more prominent, so. I
Prominence
feel-
isn't a problem.
So, I'm sorry?
Prominence is not necessarily a problem. I think that, and this is what, if I were to give some, I mean, what I'm gonna try to do is stop criticizing this and start trying to give you ideas for what you
Yeah,
can
maybe
do.
something that we
And-
can
and-
see to
yeah.
evolve,
So-
because clearly, you know, this is.
So I
not
think
something
number
that-
one,
Mhm.
the most critical component is that these two structures be identifiable as independent.
Mhm.
They obviously are gonna be connected because you're gonna walk from your bedroom to your whatever living room and,
Yeah.
you know, without having to go
Yeah.
outside. So they're going to be contiguous on the inside, but I think they need to read as independent
Mhm.
structures, particularly if you just wanna have more square footage back here, you can just continue this house. But if you're gonna try to do something like this, they really need to be pulled apart, both physically, but also visually. And I think that, I don't think you can take when you're approaching that kind of problem, you can't take this traditional language, the pitch roof and the nice happy siding, you know, you might as well put a picket fence up in the sky, up in the air around here. This needs to speak a different language, right? You can't have this
The
very.
front house is stucco.
That's, no, okay, it needs to be some other thing, right? I think if you're approaching a very contemporary problem with a very contemporary solution, you can't clad it like you do a traditional house. You can't give it the trim board and the window casing and the muntin and the pitch roof and the shingle. I think approaching it in that way is wrong. And so I think it needs to be identified as a new thing, independent, with a new language.
Okay.
There is a way to identify or make it separate yet together in many.
I love that statement. Make it more and less like, no, please.
It's all about nuance.
It's a design problem.
And there are like plenty of examples, especially in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
that they have to complement into old structures. And yes, they are successful. There are plenty of good references.
Mhm.
I can give you a few later on. But, and it's an interesting challenge. You know, I was saying, you know, the important thing is at the connector, you need two independent pieces. Can mess that up because you separate and then you.
I see what you mean, so I think.
And we're okay with that, you know, excuse me.
Yeah.
But we thought we were, you know, when we haven't heard from everybody, but we thought we were responding to the response last time.
Yeah, but it's
No,
not.
it didn't, what you guys did didn't address what we had said before. I think you took bits and pieces. It still is exactly what it was before. It's a structure that sat on top of another one that tied in. It still ties in to a lot of extent. I still have a big concern with the open porch that's on I think it really carves up the roof lines and makes it a little odd from an elevation standpoint. I understand the benefits,
Can I
but.
say something? I
Yeah.
like your thought process. I think that the thought process is fantastic as to what you want. But I'm sorry, I don't think that the design translates your thought process into the right design for this.
Not at all. It's
Right.
really, you know, it's like you
That's
have a wonderful
where the-
opportunity here to
that's
do something
where the,
incredible.
You know, it's falling between the cracks, is that what you want is fantastic, but it's not translated into that.
So, I'm trying to think where to start.
There is another
Because
way.
yeah.
There is the house like in the library, the corner of Cedar and Main. And they have a transition, which is the hip, and then they go straight, like they have this typology. That also works. This is
You mean one of those roofs that's like this?
all I'm saying is morphological. You go from a pitch to a level, and then you do something else on the top. Like that's also a possibility. All I'm saying is there is A, and B, that there is a gap and a connector, or there is this, and then there is something else here. I think it's an interesting challenge, needs to be explored, and sorry,
Yeah.
we don't see it, it's not successful.
No, I mean, the other thing is obviously, I'm not an architect and not a pro, so I'm trying
But
to
you're not
marry, what, we see also internally and in terms of the floor plans to,
Floor plans are easy.
The
For
floor
to
plan-
you,
For example,
Yeah, the
so
floor
for
plan's
me,
fine.
so for me, those, so what I wanna make sure as we're moving the house further away or closer together.
But look at this, if you
But
at the
that's-
separation, is where the circulation should be. It's a skylight place, it will bring life to the middle
Yeah,
of the
I
house.
remember you said that, but technically the skylight
Easy.
on the third floor would be on top of
Not
the
on the-
closet.
But that's because on this configuration, but you have plenty of square footage to redistribute everything.
And then-
But anyway.
So-
But there's
Yeah, no,
the
I-
practical reality
Which
that,
is?
that they really didn't want to add even what we added, because they didn't really feel they needed it. And it's obviously increasing the budget, and it's taking away
So
from their
then,
garden.
then the
So
burden of,
to-
so
to-
that-
what
it's
you're
okay,
saying
so
makes
the
sense,
burden of
but-
proof is
but-
on you to
It's a much
provide
bigger
us with
building.
an acceptable design.
Yeah, no, but for me, I mean, what's, and why I'm also here is to bring you in on the process, because, for me, this is a big project, for most other people, this is, just an extension, so I wanna be clear what I'm walking away with, to think through this again, because my hope is that I can get approval relatively quick, because I
understand.
I can't afford to be not living in my house for, more than the next few months in my sublet. But I hear what you're saying, so just if I can repeat, so I can make sure that this time I take the inputs away. Because I did think that we addressed a lot, and the things where it was like, look at this or that, where it was inputs, I took them as guides more so than things that I had to do. So what I'm understanding is the addition still feels too close to the home, and it feels too traditional because of the siding, so.
That's the traditional aspect is something that I'm not 100%.
It's not it's not the question of siding.
Yeah.
It is,
I think
is
it's
the
a
question,
proportion.
it's that is it you took a little house
Mhm.
that looks like one that was prefabricated and put on a site where there are a lot of prefabricated houses, very close to each other, and you
The
just
space.
landed right on
Yeah.
top of an addition that you put behind, it has no everything, this is what I said, I really think you have to go back to the very beginning where you start doing simple diagrams, like the kinds of things we're sketching for you, because this doesn't have a fix. You cannot take this and fix it. You can't fix this. You
Yes,
have to
and
start again.
Maybe it's my lack of expertise, but in my head, I'm already going through a lot of the ideas that, my husband and I went through in terms of like keeping it just straight, and it looked like a picket fence, actually.
There's no
Or,
reason it can't be
things
straight.
like that, so I'm trying to figure out how, without making it
But that's why
much
you
bigger.
hire them to help you translate your ideas
Well,
into something that
I-
is coherent.
I mean, obviously, we disagree with the idea that looks like a house that's been put on top of. I mean, we did like the idea of that being an element, and we had it detailed, in a way that, I mean, you're saying, no, you can't just do that, and it's.
I mean,
it's been simple.
I'll say, I
can
can be a little more direct with you. You gotta be kidding me about this. This
So
is completely unacceptable. This isn't, there is a way in which one could find humor here if one had a sixth sense of it. And I just,
that's not the intent, and
and
that's
this
not-
is just, this is not stuff you
So
can.
can I just be,
Come on.
just, so this to me is not humorous at all, and this submission is very serious. So
And-
I understand,
As
and I
understand.
totally respect your input, but I want to make sure that this is seen as really something that we spend nights on, and so.
I think
I'm
it's
happy for
understandable
input, but
that you're
and,
very
I'm
frustrated.
clearly very passionate about it,
Yes.
so I don't want to be too dramatic,
I-
but it's hard for me, something that we've been working on for months. It's like, go back,
Yeah.
and, in my head right now, I'm already trying to find solutions and pick up what you're saying, but without, making it either much deeper, or I'm not quite getting there, so, and, this in my mind was such a great way for my family home to stand. So, no,
I mean, one of the other, well, obviously, one of the solutions.
what I don't want is come back with something that you perceive as similar to the
Well,
last
that's what
times, and then
that's
be
why
here
I
in 4
wanted
months
to,
from now.
that's why I wanted to clarify that it's not about the cladding or the
Yes, and that
window
helps,
or the roof
actually.
material or the cutout here or a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, or, because none of those things will change what this is fundamentally, which is a house that fell out of the sky and landed on top of your house.
So
You need to fix that first.
the hurdle is basically this cut.
This is all very,
So
very
even the
big.
front elevation for
problem.
you, from the street,
The
you don't
entire
think-
concept
Okay.
is
So
wrong.
how,
It's not a good marriage.
I really don't know what to do.
But that's where
Because we
but,
looked-
but that's where
Well,
I
you
know,
but Bradley,
but,
like-
but by,
Because what I can't
feel
do
like,
is build on
what-
top of the house and like making it bigger or changing, because we're not gonna change.
You don't need
We're-
to.
I don't see why you
need to?
you don't have to do
already
that.
bought this from the zoning board, from what I see, right?
Mhm.
That you bought this much space, within this much space. I think that it's the
Well,
proportions,
no, I think
it's.
what now so this, I hear you, I understand the, and also even looking at the drawings, it makes sense what you're saying, how you perceive it, so we'll have to think about it, but if you also have a problem with how this, what looks balanced to me, then I don't know. I mean,
we've gotten a lot of negative feedback, clearly, but we haven't gotten any viable sense of
Yeah.
direction that we can say, okay, if we do it this way, perhaps we have a chance of getting something approved for
I
that.
just gave you two things
But
that in my
but
opinion.
it's partially contradictory to what
To
we talked
what
about.
is contrary?
If we came into with this traditional house
But
and had
I'm
a
one voice on
contemporary
six.
addition on the back,
I'm one,
I feel that would have been something that we would have
Say it
said, well,
again.
What we're saying is go back to the drawing board, really.
yeah.
Think out of the box and go back to the
Yeah,
drawing board.
I mean, it's
I mean, I
not,
can't put it
well-
more,
you want us to provide you through, we have given some, I think, clear
Very
sense of what you need to
I mean,
do.
we felt
And I
that,
mean,
we
short of
felt
us
that one thing that we-
sketching something for you, which is not our job.
No,
I
it's
mean,
not
we're
your
going
job, but
beyond
that's, you
that
know.
to do those kinds of things, but.
But what we felt was, there was an existing house that we presumed would be desirable to maintain.
which
That's
is
right, and
acceptable.
not anyone on this
Nobody-
board has said,
Right.
do not maintain
So-
what's there.
No, because obviously a solution is to build up along the street and create.
No,
That's not a solution.
It's not a
That is not a solution.
No one said
Which-
that.
Nobody-
she made that
none of
very
us said
clear.
that either.
But also, none of us have said that, and neither has your
Saying
client.
that is
That's
a
a-
possible
yeah.
solution.
Yeah, also demolishing the house is a solution.
Yes, I mean, of course.
But we are not
Building
talking
a
about-
three-story house that is consistent with the other houses along the street.
Yeah, but
We're not talking
discussing
about
that.
that.
Are we discussing about?
We're trying to come up with a solution that enabled us to keep the existing house as the prominent form of
Yeah,
use of the
we
street.
get that. It's a
And this
bad
is-
solution.
and
You
this is
need
an
a better
element
one.
Behind the house.
I
that,
understand.
you know,
We know what the problem is. You just haven't
so
solved it
I'm
properly.
hearing that you're not against the height and you're not against having a structure that's different,
That
but
is
it's
correct.
how it right now ties to the house.
It's just the
So I
proportions.
Keep the house, build a new thing,
composition.
have it be taller, get your view to the river. All those things are
Yes,
fine.
I
The
hear
way it's done is wrong.
So can I then, is there, if you don't mind, if we could go around the house, just so I can also understand where maybe aesthetically or, like for me, for example, the front of the house, this elevation, because it's two-dimensional right now, also on top of it, reads to me balanced. But you did make a big circle around it, so can you give some more input on maybe what it is on this elevation that maybe you would improve, or
It can't
even
be.
I
like
mean, it's
there's-
completely asymmetrical on
Yeah,
all different elevations, I
I
don't see
just,
balance.
I don't know what to say, because what you're asking me to do is to say, well, if you move the window and you take out this
No, not at all, it's
piece and
just
we make
last
the.
time there were very detailed, was very detailed feedback.
Here's what
from-
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I can't even work with this. No, you know, sometimes we come in, someone comes in and it's a simple, we can say, well, why don't you expand this window, why don't you make the roof a little taller, why don't you make these columns a little more substantial, and there's a way in which we can improve upon some existing language that's here. And in this case, this is what I said when I said I'm sorry, and it's unfortunate that I'm giving you this. I can't do that here.
Okay.
I don't know where to start. It's flawed as a concept.
It is unfortunate because it was, we lost,
So, yeah, I mean,
we made a
I,
tremendous amount of effort responding to some of the comments that,
Look, the comments that you brought in is for discussion only. I went to the house to discuss it. I'm still not there. What can I tell you? It's nobody's wasting. You just put more hours on design, and you will be serving better the client. What can I
it's
tell
not,
you?
it's not a matter of.
This is not successful.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're saying that we're wasting time, you're wasting our time.
No, well, no, that's not.
Yes,
I-
yes, because we are reviewing something that is not acceptable, and we are going in circles.
One of the things I
It's
regret
not-
from the prior meeting is there was almost like either you need to bring it closer to the vernacular of the house, or you need to take it away, further away. I don't think closer is possible. I just don't think
I
that
think
you
that-
can
I
make
think-
it closer.
I think
And
it's
just because of the overall idea of the addition, you can't bring it closer, it has to be further away. It's gotta be something that is completely different.
We're talking
And
further in terms of language, not further. in terms of
language,
distance, yeah.
language, not distance, but language.
I think that's
And
what
when
works.
we saw the initial proposal, it was just kind of, there's something wrong about it. We don't know what it is, but it's just not right.
And I think
Simone,
that was
would you
something that was
something?
stated very early. We said that in the initial
No, I-
meeting, that it looked like the house had landed on top of the other house. Which
Yeah.
is exactly what Michael picked up on too, that it was foreign
There are
and
many
it was
ways
even
to-
more precarious.
And what I wish we would have said initially was start over.
Well, I appreciate that,
I'm sorry.
yeah. 'Cause, yeah,
It's not easy to be in a position of criticizing a colleague or a friend or a neighbor and trying to, come up to a resolution. It's something that you have to present that says, what's wonderful.
yeah. So what I want to make sure is that this doesn't turn into like
It's not a fight.
never-ending development project, because.
It shouldn't. You will not.
Yeah, and for example, what you're showing,
I'm showing
Ayer,
you-
that's very inspirational, and,
Can I see that?
I
I'm just
don't
showing you-
think
I-
that
I-
meets my aesthetic, but I see
No.
what you're trying to say in terms of like the structure and actually, it
I'm
looks
saying that
cool
it's
because
it's a marriage of old traditions with new construction.
exactly, it's
And
like
and it's
hyper
still-
modern
And
with,
it's still,
yeah.
and this is a Pritzker price.
yes.
I'm not
So
asking
for
you.
me, and no, I find that very inspirational. I want to build a nice family home and, okay. Yeah, what I want to make sure is that this is not perceived as joke, and it was not meant to offend anyone.
No.
I will go back and come back with a new proposal, but what I also like is that I don't have to feel offended because, you know, this definitely comes from something that my husband and I worked on, so it's, you know, I hear what you're saying, but it also directly, it's not, you know, just like Bradley didn't just draw this up and I can fire him tomorrow for not meeting the demands of the board. It's also something that I have to like wrap my head around in terms of where I want this to go.
It's been a very collaborative effort between Gotham and.
Simone, I do think that your
Because
concept,
they're
the
much more
Yeah.
thought
involved.
The
process is
the
absolutely right
collaboration
on.
of a client and
But
a.
the translation is just not
But-
there.
Yeah, no, I hear you, I
And
hear
so
you.
That's
to
fine.
translate what you want, you know, I think that Bradley needs to go back to the
Yeah.
drawing board.
Yeah,
I
And,
think
you
outside the
know,
box.
I appreciate the input.
I will just two schemes you know, that I will see that this is possible marriage. It's either, you know, you keep A and bring up B, you know, the new things, or separate it altogether.
One way to do this right,
Yes.
and it's
So
like
can I-
that.
can
There's
I-
only one way to do this right.
So-
But, you know,
Well, but
that's
that's
his,
exactly
that's
the
his
problem.
opinion.
I mean, I
That's
appreciate
his
the
opinion.
candor.
I will personally invest time investigating
Sure, you
both.
wanna look into it, and maybe, you know, I have
will
been wrong
defi-
before.
Look, it's like, you know, the
There
water
you
tanks.
go. That is, I don't know if I'm within scope of my design agency anymore at this point, so I might have to take a second job to get more designs, but I will make it happen because I really want to move
But you
into
see
the
what's
south.
happening here, it's clarifying a
Yes,
concept and it will be
Which
simple.
we, you know,
and
as you
only-
can see, we were trying to do, but I also, I understand what
But
you
you see,
want.
you do this, and then you kill it again, kill it, and then, you know, the master
Yeah.
kill.
And that's, you know,
So
like, that's like.
the walk,
like he
this
said.
is something maybe.
You can still do that, you know, again, if you wanna do
Well,
the.
I'm getting very different, no, kill it and you could still do it.
Here's the thing, you have one person who you need to translate this, and you know, we are, there is not one right answer.
Yeah,
There are many right answers to your problem, and we just want one of those right answers.
Yeah,
We don't want one of
I
the
hear
wrong
you.
ones, and we have, right now.
yeah, and I
we have
also
one.
don't wanna put you on the spot, in the end, it's my house and I thought I could design
Look,
to
look.
my liking, but I
Look-
also
look at
understand
this.
that it has to be within,
Look at this, you can also do a T, there are many ways of doing this is in plan, right?
well, the
So-
T doesn't work because then I have to
Okay,
go
so
further
then-
back out,
then you-
right?
But conceptually, it works.
Of
There are
course.
many, there are 10
Yes.
different ways to skin this
What-
cat.
Yeah, well, and I
And you have to
think what
select
I'm
the one
trying
that is
to,
successful.
Yes,
And
yes.
unfortunately, it takes effort and it takes trials and until you get
Yeah,
the right one.
yeah.
I mean, there's no way to
And we're
shortcut
not-
that
And we're not
system.
there because of a lack of effort. I mean, we're not.
Nobody
we're not-
says that.
We're not there because of a lack of effort. The effort is being made, and the effort is being taken very seriously. It's trying to marry not just the new addition with the old house, but their needs and their desires.
Yeah,
So
because like,
if-
yeah.
If we have to get it so far apart that it's.
What's so far
that
apart?
much bigger,
What we're talking about is what you just did. I'm not taking
Okay.
about 3
So
blocks away.
maybe it's taking what we already did,
Just-
but in a way simplifying it,
or
so it
detailing it
reads
differently. We
more
thought, you know,
apart.
Again, last time we talked about, as he said, you know, making it, you know, more similar or more dissimilar. We were trying to tie it in because we were, you know, that was a concern that it wasn't relating.
My
So-
comments were always the same, you know, I said, listen, I need to see the site, and then I met them and I says, please, just don't put them together, don't merge it, it
Yeah.
needs to be, they
Which
need to
actually,
breathe.
that was
And that's
really
what
good
we-
advice, because it, you know, we felt that this was a better solution than before. No, I hear you,
I-
so.
I do think we were pretty clear as well from the last time, that it didn't work. I think we said it pretty clear as day, that
No, no.
the conceptualization of it, the way it looked, the tower in the back, it looked like it was unsupported. And we said that
Yes,
more than
but-
once
but
from
pulling-
multiple
but-
people.
But pulling it apart either helps that or
So-
it doesn't.
Well-
And we went through this step as an effort to help that, clearly. And
So I
you know,
think
so-
what's important to me to just clarify in terms of the site, and, you know, a year you saw it. At this point, the depth of the house into the garden is absolutely pretty much the max without having to take like really old dogwood trees coming into the garden.
How far are
So
you
you've
going?
gone deeper, it's gone 13 feet now, it's 10'6", I think.
Yeah, I
last
think
time.
we went like 3 or 4 feet deeper.
Yeah.
You know, we can look at a little bit closer, and I just want, I am trying to work within, in some confines, so maybe,
I have a friend that did a house like this in the German column in Jerusalem, and they had the same problem,
yeah.
and it was the same scale. He did it very successful. I have to. look
Because
at
the
it.
other thing in terms of the studio on top, you know, having a little bit of a cantilever effect here does give the added space that, you know, my
Yeah.
husband also needs for the space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a
Let's
lot
say
of
that-
reasons, but
let's
it
say
sounds
that-
like no matter how I reason it, it doesn't resolve the aesthetic
Well, no, I mean,
discomfort.
maybe not, I mean, maybe there's I mean, I was just sketching one thing, but
Yeah.
maybe there's a block here, and then there's another block here, you know? And it's just more playful. I mean, I was just thinking simple diagram where you have some very disparate connector, right? Even if this is stucco and this is stucco, and then this is metal or glass or whatever, I don't know. And then you just have a big box back here, but if that doesn't work, maybe you have two boxes, where you have one box that's house.
So that's like super
Right, and then you have
modern,
another box
right?
that's not house, that's studio, and maybe
But don't
this
you-
thing relates to the house, and this thing is the foreign, the new thing.
I think that you can still keep it, I wouldn't call it traditional, but traditional construction.
Mhm.
It depends on what materials you use.
It doesn't have to be a
how
glass box,
Yeah.
right, I mean.
Yeah, no, of course not. And I mean, I do want to say that, like, the direction that we went into is also something that we're, you know, that we like is this, I guess you can call it more of like a tower idea than,
And I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just,
mhm.
You can do the tower, there's nothing
Yeah.
Mhm.
inherently wrong with the tower.
Yeah, and you know, we started at a similar place to make it just straight from the side, and then we went into the cantilever just to gain the space that we need. Also because we thought it looks interesting. We liked the idea of this, you know, added space. So maybe there's also something to work
But
on
you
with
don't give up the other
with the
space,
front.
yeah, there is no need to give up the other space. Because if you do this, and even let's say that you put like a deck looking at the garden, you know, this is your, whatever it is. And this is the old house, getting there. You can also, you know, you can still have the, sorry, I'm trying to sketch fast. This is the connector, right, and then you have it, and this is your garden.
Yes, no, I mean, you know, obviously.
Yeah, but
kind of
The
using
cantilever,
song.
the cantilever, like,
Yeah, but-
it might be foreign to the house, you're just trying to keep it, learn from your house, from the system. And then develop.
So we could look at that where we push the third floor element further back without pushing the, you know,
And you can use, you know, either,
first and second floor, so you don't have to pay for additional square footage that you don't need.
right.
But it creates more of a separation of the third floor.
And then can I ask about a detail, just to get the perspective on, because I think Brandon, you brought it up, would be the balcony on the third floor. So just to give a perspective, the neighbor on that side is, what is it, like almost 18 feet away.
because you have the driveway there, right?
Exactly, we have the driveway, there's some shrubbery, we're looking at more or less like a wall from a house, there's not that many windows. Our neighbors are quite excited that we're building, so I just wanna understand if there's a fundamental resistance to it, because that's one piece that we really, really
The
like.
balcony, this balcony,
Yes,
why would you give it up?
no, because Brendan
That's just
had
my opinion. You
called
don't
it
have
out.
to,
And
I
which is
don't care for
totally
it.
fine,
It's
I
just
just
not
wanna
something I like.
understand as we're
I think it-
developing the ideas, is that we don't have to move
That's
away.
I don't think the
The
balcony,
nice
I don't think the
articulations that-
balcony is an issue. I think the fact that it's under the heavy roof that it's under makes
Yeah.
it an issue.
It's just the design
Yeah.
that's
Awkward.
It's a
Maybe it's
design.
awkward.
Okay.
You have
The
to be
design, the
incorporated.
Maybe for
location,
open
it just
air.
needs
Yeah.
more graphics to it, you
Yeah.
know, it's just a proportion of
Yeah, I'm
that.
just trying to understand if
There's
there's
no
certain
reason not to
elements.
I think it's the roof lines and how that all kind of comes together there makes is a little
It's like a
odd to me.
piece of the house is missing there, as opposed to, you know, if it were a lighter roof structure or something, just over the balcony itself. Why, my question when I look at it is, why does the heavy roof line of the entire house carry out 12 more feet over the side, and then merits additional columns to support this in sort of traditional way? Is there another way to solve it?
Mhm.
That's
Okay,
what I
that's
saw.
good input. All right. So I guess I'll be back in 2 weeks.
And we'll be here.
I walk past your house every time because I live right at the end.
Oh, okay.
And it's a nice neighborhood and, you know,
Yeah, I
sure,
really-
I wish you well.
Thank
know.
you.
I think it's a really nice project. In fact, I walked by that way today as well.
All right.
Thank you all.
This is not a,
It's a
pre-submission.
Thank you for your candor.
You have approval from the zoning board.
Yes.
Zoning board, yes.
And we went,
we want this to look at,
Yes.
we want to get to the right place. We're not opposed to the project or your process or anything like that.
yeah. All right. So, thank you.
No motion taken. We had a 35 Bel Air Drive, no one showed up. Should we continue, or do you wanna,
You can approve it.
it's pretty simple,
For me, there's no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, none whatsoever. I looked at it.
you guys have any issues with 35?
I didn't see a rendering of the actual deck that they wanted.
Little deck, there's a drawing in there.
There's a sketch here in the 11 by 17 on the first page.
Oh, okay.
There's a little elevation, little plan here.
Oh, this guy? Yeah, it looks nice.
Seems fine to me.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve 35 Bel Air. Yeah, your second is unanimous. And we have some minutes. This is from Monday, December 11th, 2017. Everything's fine with me.
Only have 3 copies. All the same.
I can answer that.
All right.
Which one do you got? December 11th?
December 11th.
Okay.
Motion to approve the December 11th, 2017 minutes.
Second.
And seconds, then January 8th, 2018. Any,
No, this was the shortest meeting in history.
yeah,
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't.
You were late, all right. Motion to approve Monday, January 8th, 2018. And second,
Second.
seconds, unanimous. Well, Dale and, yeah, you're abstaining. And we have a quorum. Dipti, Brandon, and Paul are in favor. Approve it. Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. 50 seconds. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.